welcome to the Affinity Podcast. We have a big topic ahead of us today. We're going to be talking about transparency and trust and integrity, very important things. I have Grantley here with me. Hi, Grantley.
Hi.
Can you start by talking about affinity? You wrote the affinity principle. We have the affinity OS system. Affinity is a really important word in what you do. Can you describe that and talk about that's kind of the foundation?
Yeah, so affinity, by definition, is to have an attraction. So to feel like you're connected to somebody, you have alignment. And in a company, that's really critical, to have some sense of affinity between team and leadership, between team and member, customer. So affinity, to me, underwrites a productive and functional company. Functionality of a company is not just simply defined by the financials. Obviously, that's sort of the end product, and hopefully it's a really good one. What I've seen over the years is when you have affinity, the financial piece falls into place beautifully. So I think one of the things that underwrites a functional company is this piece that we're talking about today. It's integrity, it's transparency, it's trust.
Why do so many leaders struggle with this? It seems that still a lot of people tend to manage from the financial side of things. Why is that?
Well, it's easily measurable, and it's something that you can look at on a daily basis or a monthly basis or a quarterly basis and make judgments around. So you can watch the trends. We're obviously in business to make a profit, so the financials measure that, the profitability. What I'm suggesting is that the financials always lag behind what's happening within the company, truly happening. And from a leadership perspective, a team perspective, and a customer or member perspective. If those things are going well, what tends to happen is the financials come behind that. What I like about the EMPS system and the MPS system that Affinity OS uses is that it gives you a lead indicator. So what it's doing is giving you an indication in advance of what the financials will reflect. And as a leader or a manager, I'm looking for that. I need that. I want that. I want to be ahead of the curve rather than dealing with it when the problems hit, for example. Analogy would be sailing. So when we sailed open ocean, you're looking at the weather diligently. And one of the interesting things about it was we gathered multiple weather systems together to look at, and then it's this GPS concept again, get multiple data points and try and get really accurate. But when we did that, we had a sense of what was going to happen for the next 5 days, weather-wise. Couldn't look out too much longer than that. But that 5-day window was very powerful for us because we could maneuver and position ourselves to take advantage of that or maybe to avoid a problem. And I'm suggesting that if you've got something like Affinity OS, which is giving you lead indicators up to 90 days out, that's pretty powerful, particularly if you're acting on it. Like it's useless if you don't. So I think one key thing here is this is all predicated on actually listening and responding and communicating through the system to ameliorate a trend that maybe is going in the wrong direction.
Let's talk a little about trust. Trust, to me, is the foundation for any relationship, right? So in business, that's the relationship between the leader and the team members and also down to the customer or member. Can you talk about trust and how a leader can start by really creating a trusting environment within a company?
There's so much that goes into this, but the thing, one of the underwriting principles of trust is consistency. Again, I talk about that in the affinity principle, and if you can be consistent with your people, you'll gain and gather trust. And I'd say consistency, even if you're a pretty tough manager and you're consistently tough, they at least know where they stand, right? And because you're consistently applying that level of rigor. Whereas if people are all over the place, like a leader, manager, and you don't know what it's going to be like today around that person, that's really hard, a really hard environment to work in. So a lot of times at work, people will describe me as having a lot of equanimity, that I'm pretty consistent, that I don't, fluctuate a lot, and I don't, jump down people's throats, but nor am I, always, I think what I could honestly say is I'm always pretty much presenting the person who I am. There's a degree of authenticity hopefully there, but it's the consistency of that.
And that's so rare, and that's so true. Yeah. I feel like equanimity is your superpower, because I have never met anyone with more equanimity. Sometimes I rail against it because I'd like more equanimity, wouldn't we all? But it is a tremendously powerful characteristic to achieve, and I commend you for it, because I watch it and it's just something that I marvel at, that and your ability to be that way all the time.
I think what's driven that a lot is making mistakes, flying off, jumping to conclusions, doing the things that we all do when we're young and maybe naive or inexperienced. And so I just don't want to make those mistakes again. So I'm going to listen. I'm going to try and seek multiple data points. I think part of it comes from me constantly, on one level, just challenging myself to know, do I have a good handle on this? Am I really? Do I have it in perspective? And so, yeah. Look, it's incredibly valuable to be that consistent with your team, because they really feel like they know where they stand. And then at times, I catch myself like not present, not really engaging with the team at the level I'd like to, and I pull myself up, because you're shooting yourself in the foot then, because you've established this trust with them, you've established a degree of authenticity with them, and when they don't see that, like, it does challenge it. I mean, this is a deposit and deduction situation. It's like the bank account I talk about. We all have bank accounts with each other, and you can put lots of deposits into a bank account, but a major infraction can literally, gut that bank account. And that's not really what I'm talking about, but you can chisel away at it. So I think consistency would be a key element of that. And that aligns with the affinity principle. People have an affinity to people they feel like they can understand and can relate to, or can at least know what they're getting.
I know a lot of your team members have a lot of affinity with you, or feel a lot of affinity for you, because you really care about people. You really, again, you are one of those rare leaders that is going to take the time to get to know people at any level and every level, and get down with them and help them with their job. And that is so rare, because you guys in your positions are so busy. A lot of CEOs would go, well, that's not my time best spent, but that's not how you see it. And I think therein lies your magic. Can you talk about just that, your seemingly endless desire to really connect with people because you care so deeply and so authentically? It's unbelievable to me.
Thank you. I take that as huge praise, and thank you. But I do feel like there's some pluses and minuses to that. I'll just speak to that a little bit. I do get down in the trenches with the team, and I love it. When I get my hands dirty with the team, doing things that they're doing, or even demonstrating how to do something, I think that does create affinity.
Yeah, I watched a video of you catching a venomous snake the other day. Okay, that's how deep this goes.
Yeah, look, that was a one-off. Well, actually two offs.
No, 2 offs, because you did it 2 days in a row.
Yeah, the snake came back, sadly. But well, like, I just felt like I needed to take control of that situation, because it was scary. It was scary for people. And so... another CEO would just be like, hey, call the nearest snake catcher
and let's do that. But no, you go get a box that wasn't even big enough and took that baby right out the front door. I mean, it was crazy.
But really what I want to do, what I want to demonstrate to the team, is that I'm happy to do whatever I'm asking them to do. And I have. Working through the fitness industry, I started out, cleaning floors, teaching classes, working behind reception, and then, did sales and gym floor and, so on through the whole system. So I have an appreciation in that space of what people are doing, and that's not necessary, but it's helpful. It's really helpful to understand. Like one of the things I talk about is a little digression, but an important one. We talk about launches, launching your team. And what launching your team is essentially acclimating the team to their role. But that doesn't end at their role. It actually demands an interface between them and the other team members they're going to work with. So I ask them, in the case of a wellness centre, to spend some time in the childcare, to spend some time in housekeeping, to spend some time in Group X, to do some classes if they're not, generally disposed to do that, because then they get an appreciation of what their teammates are doing, and that creates affinity in and of itself. So this sort of flows around. It's not just from the leader down. It goes both ways, and it is cyclical. So the concept of the launch is to give people a really good feel for the team that they're a part of and the challenges that each one of us faces when we do our job. So that's really critical.
And empathy, right? So empathy is obviously a critical part of this equation. Can you talk a little bit about Francis Frei's triangle of trust? Because empathy is at the tip of that.
Yeah, so it's got 3 layers to it. And Frei's triangle's pretty powerful tool, actually, if you think about it. Empathy is one piece of it. Logic's another piece, and that means rigor. And then authenticity really is actually the tip of it. It's really, I think, the most essential part of it, although they're all critical. So the triangle is authenticity, empathy, and logic. And the authenticity piece is what we've been discussing. Truly be yourself, demonstrate who you are, and again, even if you're a tough manager, that consistency of who you are will actually build trust over time. The empathy piece is, I think, and it layers into the launch, it layers into all the things that I'm describing here, is really seeking to understand. We talked about this in communication last week. We really need to seek to understand the person we're relating to, the person we're talking with, the person we're present with. And that empathy is understanding their circumstances. And that's best achieved by asking questions, quite honestly. If you don't understand who they are or the pressures that they're under or the challenges that they face or the ideas that they have, you can't have true empathy for them. And the logic piece, and in brackets underneath that is rigor, the logic piece is really just making sure that you are making good, sound decisions, that you're applying rigor, that it's not just a knee-jerk reaction. I sometimes see managers and leaders making, reactionary calls based on maybe, the finances aren't so good, and so let's cut back here, let's cut back there, and we make, decisions that are very short-term decisions that have long-term ramifications. So apply rigor to those decisions, and Frei points out that if you do that, then your team's going to trust you as well. So those 3, I think underwrite, trust. And Francis Frei did a great job of elucidating that.
Can you talk about interviewing and where integrity, trust, and transparency come in the interview process?
Yeah, it's critical. So what are we trying to achieve in an interview? We're trying to get to know that person enough to know if they're a good fit for a position. And if they're not transparent in that process, or we're not transparent about who we are, neither party's going to make a good decision. So again, I jump back to this referral thing. We talk about the EMPS system being a referral and retention system. It actually is a really good tool to see who within the team may be a good referral source because they're giving us high marks for that, and to encourage them to do that. And if it's a team member who's very engaged, who loves the company, who does a good job, you should actively encourage them to, refer people like them or people that they have alignment or affinity with. So, in this process of interviewing, there's a lot of things that are needed, and one of them is if you get that person referred by a team member, you've already got like a lot of transparency across that person. So you can see them over time through the eyes of the referee. The other things, is to encourage transparency and to be very open yourself. The more open you are about the company, even its flaws or the challenges that it's facing, the more they're going to feel welcome to be authentic with you. There's also, a social piece to this, and the social piece is that, and we're not really supposed to do this, I guess, but is to look at that person and who they are when they're at home. And a lot of times when people are posting on social and they're out there, they put themselves out there, they're really inviting that space or for you to look into their world a little. And in looking into their world, a lot of times you can see, are they aligned from a values standpoint? Mm-hmm. So it's not judgmental. It's more, what this is not is a set of judgments. What it is alignment. It's affinity. It's establishing, is that person a good fit for our organization? And if we make a great decision for them and they make a great decision for themselves, that's good for everybody. So I think there should be a lot of rigor around this interview process. I describe it in the affinity principle as the steeplechase. And one of the key elements of the steeplechase is going through a lot of different filters. And an example I'd use, I would actively encourage my reception team to give me feedback on the interviewee afterwards. Or if they interacted or passed by one of our housekeeping team. I'd love to check in with that housekeeping team and see what their reaction was to that person. Like, how friendly were they? Did they acknowledge them? Did they look at their name tag and use their name? You can tell a lot about people when they know you're not looking. And so all of those data points that you can gather from your team about that interviewee are very powerful. And they're probably as powerful or more powerful than what you're going to get in the interview process itself. So I've had examples where people have come in for an interview. They've been nothing short of, if you will, rude to the team. Like maybe I'm running late, for example, and they get in a huff and they treat the receptionist poorly as a function of that. That to me is like just a no-go. That's a red flag. If they can't be forgiving of, what's going on behind the scenes or first seek to understand, as we say, and if they're not going to treat our team well, I don't want that person in the company. So it is a process. A hiring process is a process of peeling back the layers, seeing who truly the person is, but equally revealing the layers of who you are as a company as well.
Let's talk about integrity. I hear you saying a lot, it's not what you say, it's what you do. That to me relates to integrity. Can you expand on that?
Yeah. So dealing with a team member lately or recently who says all the right things and truly knows what's involved in their job, but in turn they don't do it. And I tend to give people a lot of chances, and sometimes I'll reflect on my words and have I not been clear, or have we not been clear, or have we asked that person to do something that's not realistic? But when somebody misrepresents themselves, and I put a term to this the other day. I don't know if this is an actually official term, but a lot of people talk about passive aggressive, somebody that says yes, but then they're aggressive in their response. In actual fact, the opposite of what they've said. I sort of more feel like this is often passive resistance. And what it is somebody saying, yes, you're right, but then just not doing it because they don't think it's right and they don't agree with it. One of the premises of building trust and consistency in a company is if you make a decision to do something, maybe that's a decision through a position description that you've agreed to. Maybe it's an executive team sitting at a boardroom table making a decision. When you've agreed to do that thing, you need to stick to that. Even if it's at odds with what you personally think, if you've committed to it and agreed to it in a forum, you need to stick with it. And that's where trust comes in. I know there's times when I do things which go against my grain. They're not bad things. I don't think they're out of character. They're just things that I think are maybe not the right logical decision, but the decision's been made by whomever, and I've agreed to it, then I need to stick to that. And so I think that trust and integrity comes with, again, consistency, but truly transparency as well. So I would encourage team members, managers, leaders, don't say something you're not going to do. Don't promise something that you can't follow through on. It'll just bite you in the butt.
Can you talk about transparency and the Affinity OS system? Because to me, it seems like that would be the great mechanism for transparency.
Well, it is, because the Affinity OS system is anonymous. It's designed to be anonymous, and team members can opt in to be known. But that anonymity can give a level of transparency you just can't get otherwise. So I know there's times when I'm meeting with team members and they're really not giving me their truth. They're telling me what they think they want me to, or what I think they think I want to hear. But in actual fact, what I really want to hear is their truth, because even if it's something I don't like or I disagree with or I think's maybe the wrong thing, at least we know where we stand. And I, again, try and be very balanced when I do get that level of transparency by not doing the knee-jerk reaction and arcing up on it, and just trying to understand what's driving that. And a lot of times, when people feel that level of trust with you to have that conversation, you can quickly get to the quick of the matter or what's the challenge and address it. And so, again, this whole thing of building trust, building authenticity, building integrity, the dividends from it are huge. You'll get so much value from having that level of trust with your team that you'll never go back to like trying to dodge bullets and say the right thing and placate people when you realize that the value of that authentic exchange it's invaluable, actually.
Any closing thoughts on the topics of integrity, trust, and transparency?
No, I just think, well, yes, there is one. It's a hell of a lot easier to be yourself than to pretend to be someone else. And I don't think we realize that a lot of times. We go through life battling to be somebody that we think we should be or that people want us to be. Like, social is a huge sort of system to wrap yourself up in, that you can present this persona of perfection and polish and never getting anything wrong. And I really feel like when we are authentic, when we are ourselves, there's a lot less energy expended, a lot less stress, and a lot less ramifications in the long run, particularly with relationships. So think about this in a human relationship, like a couple, for example. If you're not authentic up front, if that person doesn't really know who you are and you act out or you act as someone else, you're ultimately going to revert to who you are, and ultimately that relationship's going to collapse. So I think going into relationships, and those relationships as it relates to business are when you go into a company, for example, or hire somebody, what you're looking for is to be authentic from the beginning. And if you can do that, then the chance of success is much greater.
Well, thank you for joining us today. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to reach out to us or leave a comment below. We hope you can join us next time.